I recently did a little project where I posted one of my favourite boat life photos from the last decade or so every single day for 100 days in a row. And it was fantastic, and it brought back so many incredible memories for an absolute nostalgia junkie as myself. And you know what? Some of the pictures that I chose, they've got incredible memories attached to them, or they're just incredible sights and beautiful moments I happen to be lucky enough to catch on camera. Let's take a look at some of my favourites. These first images from my life on board Narrowboat Tilly back in the early days obviously have a lot of nostalgia and amazing memories for me. But when I look at some of the images like this, my view from my bed and that tiny little narrowboat, and think, I spent 1,000 nights of my life sleeping on that boat, and a lot of those nights were spent here at Chirk on my winter mooring. That beautiful tree is sadly no longer with us. And just downstream from there, you've got St Martin's, an area with incredible dark skies for astronomy and very often the site of amazing sunrises and sunsets. This is just one from Chirk with my super torch in the dead of night. And I look at some of these images, such as the mist on the canal here at Mad Jack's, or the small tunnel here by Chirk Marina, and they look so incredible and beautiful that it almost defies belief that I was the one who was there taking that image. It's the sort of thing you'd see other people doing on telly. This is my granddad, George, one of the absolute legends, not just of boat life, but of life in general. And I can't tell you how many times he has rescued me, especially when I would be riding my bike and get a puncture in the absolute middle of nowhere. Yes, he's made some very interesting trips to try and find me down the indistinguishable country lanes of Shropshire and North Wales. And of course, depending where you moor your boat, if you're at a busy place during the summer, you might get a bit of comedy as well. And just to sum up the variety of boat life, we can go from crashing holiday boats to this incredible image, another one I can't believe I was lucky enough to witness in person. Speaking of holiday boats, in the off-season you'll notice the marinas are a little bit fuller normally. God, look at that very overgrown Montgomery Canal there, and an absolutely epic sunset there. This was not long after I had bought Narrowboat Abel's Ark and I was getting supplies in Ellesmere Marina. And that initial phase, we had some unbelievable summery weather when I'd first bought the second boat. And I think that this here on the shores of Blakemere has got to be one of the greatest mooring places ever. That's literally a view you can have through your kitchen window. This was the first time I ever took the boat out of the marina at Ellesmere. And as me and my grandad were working, amazingly a peacock turned up. More recent sunny Pontcassuffley Aqueduct. Me pretending to know what on earth I'm doing there. And some cows cooling off. Lovely stuff. This is a nice image. Absolutely lovely. Boat filled with that orange sunset light. I've got to say that I think some of my favourite photos are not necessarily the most scenic, but images like this of me and my granddad and other family members on board, because those of course are some of the images that have the strongest and best memories attached to them. Looking at these images as they flash on screen now, I'm reminded again that although I thought 100 photos for the project was a big number, the more that the days wore on, the more I realised just how many images that I had that I wanted to share, and that 100 was actually a limit that I was placing rather than a challenge to reach. Oh, good old Charlie the dog in his carrying bag. That was on his last ever trip to the canal that day. Bless him. Oh, what a lovely, soft, gentle boy. Off the top of my head now, just as I'm reacting to these images flashing up on screen, I would say that probably the more nostalgic and the strongest sort of reaction I'm having deep down in my heart are from these early photos from my early boat life on Tilly. And I suppose that's probably because these are sort of more time-blurred, clouded, wistful memories that I'm looking back on at a simpler time of my life and a simpler time of the world, it seems. This is me enjoying some traditional boating weather. At least I've got a proper waterproof coat on for once when the rain started, which is something that doesn't always happen, I'll say that much. I think that if you look at a sunset image like this, these are the really difficult pictures to choose when I was doing the project, because if you think over the course of a decade or so, how many thousands of sunrises and sunsets did I see during that time in all different weather conditions, all different times of year, with all sorts of different rural environments that they were taking place in. And so because of that, I think it's, well, that just helps highlight how many of these little moments there are. That's always a sad image at Chirk. Oh, look at this. Ellesmere, the place of so many great moments and so many happy memories. Ellesmere Marina, one of the handiest places to be able to nip in and out of when the canal gets really busy. And a more recent picture from the Trevor Basin at night, absolutely filled with the boats in the off-season that must have been. It is truly remarkable to think of the amount of different scenes and conditions that we're seeing here. I mean, let's dwell on this, one of my snowy pictures from 2021. Still one of the greatest days I've ever spent on a boat. Look at that. This was a really popular picture when I posted it, which I didn't really expect. But again, something incredibly atmospheric and very sort of calm about the image, I'd say. At least that's what I'd say, knowing that there's a nice warm fire lit on that boat. Or at least I hope there was. Look at that absolutely beautiful family of swans in Wixall Marina. And this not so beautiful young narrowboat pirate. I do think that as I see some of these images, there's a lot of that nostalgia that I've mentioned, but there's also a certain element of sadness to some of the early ones, I think, as well. Because it is, as I say, it's a more innocent, simpler time. It's almost like that time that I spent on Narrowboat Tilly was a second go at childhood almost. Oh, I absolutely love these days and moments in Ellesmere Marina. I just absolutely love the sunsets and sunrises that you get. And again, look at that next picture along. Straight away, incredible sunset down at St. Martin's. Going back to what I was saying about Narrowboat Tilly being like some kind of second childhood, I don't think that's quite what I mean, really. It's more the general experience and the joy and the excitement that having a boat and having all these experiences for the first time on a boat was able to bring to my life, that gave me that childlike sense of joy of, oh wow, we get to light a fire when it's cold at night, and I get to hop on my bike and pedal through these amazing places, and that's just when I'm going to work, and all of that sort of thing. I think it gave me that sort of new lease of life, and took the things that I already loved about astronomy, the great outdoors, etc., etc., and then let me see a lot more of it in a lot more conditions from a lot more different places. When it comes to that childish sense of wonder, I think that the fact I was doing all of this initial boat life run in the era before YouTube had become what it is today, so there weren't all of these narrowboat dedicated channels that covered every element of boat life and boat maintenance, etc., etc., in great detail. And so, of course, I was going out there with this lack of general information, and also a lack of even seeing some of these beautiful moments and places on a video on a screen. I was just experiencing them by turning up on a boat and seeing them for the first time. Absolutely wonderful. What a fantastic experience, and something I'm truly grateful to have done back then, and truly grateful to have been able to do for so much of the last decade or so. Thank you so much, my friends, for joining me for this nostalgia trip. If you're curious and want to help me out, then please do consider checking out my short books about boat life available for the Kindle, and there's also a paperback, and there's even an audiobook of one of them. But until the next time, my friends, thanks for tuning in. Have an absolutely fantastic day. Keep it interesting, keep it boat worthy, and of course, my friends, farewell.